Okay, hello and welcome to this Java Bukkit plugin development tutorial. I have slightly changed my idea for how I'm going to do this because it was a bit more popular than I was expecting. So instead of just having like an ongoing series, which was my original plan, I'm going to do it like I do the PHP tutorials, where each series will show you how to make something. So it'll be a specific plugin in this case, and that will sort of center around one kind of idea. So in this video, it's going to be terrain generation, which when I first found out about how to do this, it was one of the sort of most fun things that I thought you could do. So you can basically generate custom terrain. What you can't do though, unfortunately at the moment, is use the terrain generator from standard Minecraft and sort of add to it. You can add things to worlds that use that generator, and we'll get to that at some point in this series. So the first thing we're going to do is create a plugin which will generate a completely flat landscape with a few trees on it. So the idea is that this will be used for like free build things, maybe competitions or whatever. The reason I'm doing this is because it's a very simple, nice sort of way to demonstrate sort of the technical how to use a chunk generator, which I'll get to in a minute as well. Without having to worry about loads of sort of maths things, which you sort of need to if you want to do things like add hills. And I'll explain that why in a little bit later as well. So we may as well get on with it. So the first thing we need to do is create a new project. So if you've got Eclipse open like I have here, just right click in this little sidebar area, go to New, Java Project. Oh, this is too big, so just drag that like that. And then we just need to give the project a name, which I'm going to be working under the name Flatlands. You can ignore all this other stuff, just click Next. And then you need to add the bukkit.jar file, which again I will put a link to the download in the description. So just go to Libraries, and then add external jars, and then add the bukkit.jar file, which I've just got here. When you download it, it's actually called bukkit-snapshot or something. .jar. I've just renamed it for simplicity. So anyway, just click OK, get that open, and that's it. Just click Finish. So now that our Flatlands project has been created, we need to create a package to contain all of our source. So if we just bring this down like I have here, and on the source folder, or whatever this is called, go to New, Package, and then you need to name this package. In the previous part, I did actually use the wrong convention for this. I mean, it doesn't really matter too much, but the actual convention is I said reverse your domain name. The actual convention is reverse domain name and put the project name after it, if that makes sense. So previously I had this, but it actually should have been this. I don't. It probably does matter. It doesn't make any technical difference, but there'll be some sort of good practice, best practice type thing. Anyway, that's what you do. If you don't have a domain, by the way, like I have, the sort of convention at the moment is you just use me.username. So using my forum username, I would do that. But, you can't do. But I don't want to do that. I want to use my domain name because I do have one. So there we go. And then we just click Finish, and that's created a new package where we can put all of our class files. And we also need to create a plugin.yml, which will sort of tell the Minecraft server about our plugin and tell it how to load it and all that stuff. So what we do, right click on the source folder, New, File, and then all we need to do is give the file a name, which is plugin.yml. Click Finish, and that's created. So this plugin.yml file I did cover in the previous part, but I will go over it again slightly more briefly. Basically, like I said, it tells the Minecraft server information about your plugin, so its name, its version, and sort of how to load it. So the name of this plugin is Flatlands. Its version is going to start at 0.1, and its main, which is its main class, is sort of the class that the Bukkit will try and load first. And then you can run your code basically. So this is the name of the package that we created, followed by the class name. Now we haven't actually created a class yet, but don't worry about that. We'll do that in a minute. So the full path is UK co Bukkit flatlands, and at the end it'll be the same because we're going to name our class flatlands. So it looks a bit awkward, but that's just the way you have to do it. So now we've done that, we can just save it, and we can go ahead and create our flatlands.java file. So just go right click on the package, go to new, and then class. Then we get this window. Don't have to worry about any of these settings, you just have to give the class a name, which is going to be flatlands. Click finish, and then we go. So hopefully now when we start up our server, there won't be sort of any errors to do with the plugin.yml file, and it will actually try and load this, although it won't work because we haven't got the appropriate methods that are required. So in the same as the previous video, what we need to do is have this extend the Java plugin class. So we just do extends Java plugin, and this just makes all of the sort of methods available. For example, this allows you to get the server, which you can then use to log messages. It also sort of hints that you need to define an onEnable function. It needs importing, which is why it's gone red underlined. If you just hover over it, top quick fix is import. So just click import. And now you can see that this has gone red underlined, and that's just because the onEnable and onDisable methods are not implemented in this block here. And if you just click the top one, they get added automatically for you. I prefer them the other way around, so what I usually do is just move this above, simply because enabling does come before disabling, so I don't know why they'd be the other way around. Anyway, you can delete these auto-generated comments, and also these overrides aren't necessary here anyway. Just make it look a bit cleaner, there's no real reason to do that. And now the next thing we're going to do is define a method that will handle logging messages, because we may need to log information to the server.log file, and we need to, it's a bit awkward to do, so we need to define a method to handle logging messages. And we want this method just to take one string, we want it to log a message in the format as we did previously, so I'll just go ahead and do that. So this method is going to be public, its type is going to be void because we don't want it to return anything, and its name is going to be log message. It's going to take one parameter, which is going to be a string, and that parameter is going to be MSG, short for message, obviously. So inside this file, what we need to do is get information from our plugin.yml file, and then use that to generate a string, which we can then log. So what we need to do is get something called the plugin description file, which is essentially this plugin.yml file. So we just define a new variable called, well, its type is plugin description file. It's quite awkward to type. Its name is going to be PD file, just because it's a bit shorter, and it's going to be equal to this get description, wherever that is. There we go, that's all we need to do there. And this will need importing or typo correcting. Oh no, just importing. Good. So just click import, and hopefully this line gets added. So then, using this PD file, we can get the information we need. So what we're going to do first, before we get onto that, is something that I should have done really first, but never mind. We need to define a logger, and we're going to do that just up here because it's going to be a property of our plugin. And this is going to be protected, or it could really be private. I'll do private, actually, makes more sense. So private, its type is going to be logger, its name is going to be log, and it's going to be equal to logger, spelled right, get logger, and the string is going to be Minecraft. This string here, that you put sort of in the get logger method call, is just a string that represents, the log file. So internally somewhere, the string Minecraft is linked to the file server.log. That's all that means. You can also leave it empty, which does something else, but I've forgotten. So you can go and look that up. Right. So inside our log message function, we can now use this logger, this log variable property, to log a message. So what we do is this log info. Obviously info level, you can also have like severe, warning, or probably some others. I just generally go with info. You don't, well, I suppose if you are logging an error, it probably would be a good idea just to like have a separate function or maybe a variable or something passed into this method that controls the sort of severity or the type of the error. But I usually just leave it as info. It doesn't seem to make much difference. Right, so this method that we've written out there will log a string to the console and to the server.log file. So the string that we want to log is the name of the plugin, which we can get from the pd file get name. Then we want to add on a space, not 2, and then the version, which we can again get from the file get version, and then we want to add on a colon and a space, and then the message. So what this will actually print out to the log file is flatlands 0.1 and then the message that you type in, so whatever this parameter here is. So for the onEnable, we're going to use it to send this. So all we need to do that, instead of like copying this whole line and having this whole sort of long bit here duplicated, all we need to do to create this message in the onEnable call up here is do log message enabled, like so. Easy. And then again, we just need to do the same in the disabled section, like so. So what we have here is something which will sort of log an enabled message when we start the server, because obviously onEnable is called when the server first starts and disable when it shuts down. So if we just export this, we should be able to test out this so far. So if we just go to File, Export, we want to export a jar file, and we want to export flatlands, wherever it is there. We don't want these two files, and we need to change this path. So I'm just going to type in tutorial there, because that's the name of the folder. So this is exporting the jar file to your plugins folder, basically. So wherever your plugins folder is, you need to enter the path to that here, or you can just click browse and pick a location, and the name of the jar file should be the name of the plugin, so flatlands in this case. And if you just click next, you can also save the description of this jar in the workspace. And what this does is sort of saves all these settings that we have so far, so that you can export it with a lot less clicks next time. So if we can this is relative to your workspace. So like here I have /per world inventories, that represents this folder here. So we just want /flatlands, like so. And if we just click next and finish, you can see that we have this jar description created here. And if we just double click that, we get this page with all the settings that we had before, and all we need to do to export it then is just click finish. So that's that. So we just go ahead and switch over to our terminal and start up the server. We should see, hopefully, fingers crossed, that we don't get any errors, and we don't. So you can see here that we have flatlands 0.1 enabled, and if we just stop the server, you can see we have flatlands 0.1 disabled. So that's the sort of basics of the setup that we're using. It's essentially the same as pretty much every other plugin at the moment, and there is something now that we need to add which is a little bit different. This plugin is providing a chunk generator, which it deals with chunk generation. So for every chunk that is loaded, the server will, if it already exists, it'll just load it from the hard drive or memory. If it doesn't exist, it'll generate it, and we can set our plugin as the generator. And because we're just setting it the plugin name, when things like query the plugin, they need to be able to find out the actual class which is used to generate, chunks. So what we need to do is create a new method inside, our main class file, our flatlands, our actual plugin class file, which will get the default, the chunk generator. So this method has to be public. Yep, I did type that. It returns a type chunk generator, and its name has to be get default world generator. Hopefully I've spelled that right, but we'll find out soon. This method has to take two parameters. The first one is a string, and that is the world's name. The second one is another string, and it's the world's unique ID, which is something we don't really need to worry about too much, for now anyway. And this just needs importing. That looks bad. Oh, I see, it needs something to be returned. So what this is going to do is create a new instance of our ChunkGenerator class, which we're going to create in a minute, and then it's going to return it. So what we're going to do is do return new flatlands generator, like so. And it's going to take the plugin as its parameter, because we may need to log stuff to the console. Obviously this class doesn't exist yet, so what I'm going to do is just go ahead over here, as we did before, and create it. So I'm going to right click on our project, our package, sorry, and go to new class. Let's bring this down here, and its name was flatlands generator. That looks right. So just click finish, and then we've got a new class. So this class needs to extend the chunk generator. Sorry, but you know me, bad at typing. And what this does is essentially the same as for our flatlands.java file. By extending the Java plugin, we make all of the methods like getDescription available. By extending the chunk generator, we make all of the methods related to chunk generation available. And as you can see, this has gone underlined. We need to add an unimplemented method, which is generate. So if we just click add unimplemented methods there, you can see that we get some imports happening, and also we get this generate method added. It's rather confusingly named actually, so I'm just going to delete all of the unnecessary nonsense. The first parameter is obviously the world, because its type is world. So the world. This random is just a it's the instance of the random number generator based on the world's seed, I think. So we can use that to generate random numbers if we want to randomize anything, like hill height or anything like that. Width of river, could be literally anything. So we're going to rename arg1 to rand, and these final two parameters, int and int, arg2 and arg3, are the coordinates of the chunk. So that doesn't sound right. It's the chunk x and chunk z coordinates. So chunk x and chunk z. You may not need all of these parameters, but the x and z coordinates can be useful if you need to like base something on the coordinates, if that makes sense. So for example, I've made a plugin which generates paths, big cubes, big squares of a given plots of a given size. And you need to know the coordinates to work out if that chunk should contain a path or not. So yeah, that's basically that. So I'm going to end this here because it's getting a little bit too long, and in the next part we'll go ahead and fix. Actually, no, let's do that now before I don't want to end with errors. So if we just go back here, you can see that this is still red underlined, and that's because the constructor to accept this as the parameter isn't added. So if we just go back to our chunk generator class and just create a constructor, which we do by creating a public method which has no type, and its name is the same as the class, like so. And this as it is there is a constructor, and it has to take one parameter, which is flatlands, the type flatlands, just this class here, and this is going to be called instance, like so. And we're going to set this instance to the property. We're going to set the property that we're going to create now equal to this instance, and this property is going to be private. Its type is going to be flatlands, and its name is going to be plugin. So just in here we can then do this plugin equals instance. So now we've done that, inside any of our other methods down here, we can just use plugin as we previously used this. So for example, say here, for whatever reason, we wanted to get the description file, we could do plugin get description instead of this get description. And we can also use it to log messages by not making typos. So plugin log message is available, and we can just pass in a string to that and it will work. So that's where I'm going to end it. Now we've fixed that little error, and in the next part we will get on with generating a chunk, basically. And I'll explain all of this stuff and what this byte means. Okay, so thank you for watching, and come back for part 2.